When Travis lost his job, I didn't flinch. I held him. I told him we'd figure it out. I whispered, "It's just a chapter, not the story." And I meant it. He had been the steady one for years, folding my laundry when I forgot, picking up my favorite oat milk, learning how to cook gluten-free pasta because I once mentioned it made me feel less bloated. So when he came home one Thursday in January, eyes hollow and voice shaking, I promised I'd be the steady one this time. That's what love does, right? We hold each other upright when the other collapses. But no one told me what to do when the collapse stretches into months, when you start feeling like you're holding someone who doesn't want to get back up. At first, he applied everywhere. He made spreadsheets, watched online tutorials, updated his resume 5 different times. I sat beside him at the kitchen table and helped write his cover letters. But by month 3, something in him began to flicker. He stopped shaving, stopped dressing, stopped trying. And most frightening of all, he stopped hoping. He'd stay in bed till noon. Watch documentaries about serial killers, scroll Reddit threads about late bloomer millionaires like they were prayer books. I kept making breakfast, kept doing laundry, kept telling friends, he's just processing, he'll bounce back. But behind closed doors, the weight began to press on me. Not his weight. The weight of being his only source of light. I still loved him. That wasn't the problem. The problem was, he no longer felt like my partner. He felt like a child I didn't sign up to raise. Like a soul curled in the corner of the room, whispering doubts I didn't know how to silence anymore. He needed me. And at first, I needed to be needed. But love should never feel like you're carrying someone across a river they've forgotten how to swim. And every time I left the apartment, to work, to grab coffee, to breathe, I found myself slowing down on the way home, lingering at crosswalks, browsing cereal aisles I didn't need to be in, because going home didn't feel like coming home anymore. It felt like walking back into someone else's grief that never ends. There were good days. He'd cook breakfast. We'd watch reruns of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He'd kiss my shoulder and say thanks for not giving up on me. And I'd smile. But deep down something in me flinched, because the love he felt for me was starting to become a debt I didn't ask for. I didn't want to be his reason for living. I wanted to be his partner in living. But I couldn't say that. Not without sounding cruel. Not without breaking the version of me he had clung to like a lifeline. So I stayed. I stayed because leaving someone when they're already drowning makes you look like the monster. But no one tells you that staying can be its own kind of abandonment too. Then one Sunday, I went to church alone. Travis was still asleep, the room heavy with sleep-sour air and his half-finished whiskey on the nightstand. I slipped on my coat, sat in the back pew, and just breathed. I didn't go to be saved. I just needed to feel like I was somewhere quiet where no one needed anything from me. And that's when I first heard Ben speak. He wasn't a preacher, just a guest coordinator reading announcements with a warm voice and a steady rhythm. I didn't know his name yet, didn't know his story, but in that moment, when he looked up and smiled, soft and effortless, I remember thinking, he sounds like someone who could carry things too. I didn't notice Ben again for a few weeks. Church was a habit I clung to, not for theology, not for the doctrine, but for the stillness. It was the only place in my life where no one asked me, "How's Travis?" or "Is he applying again?" or "Are you okay?" Everyone at church assumed you were okay. That was the gift. Ben was always there, handing out programs, organizing donation drives, speaking with that calm voice that made everything feel like it was going to be okay. One Sunday, the service ran long. I stayed after to help fold chairs just to avoid going home too soon. That's when he approached me. "You're the quiet one," he said, smiling gently. "I've seen you. You come alone, sit in the third pew from the back." I laughed, startled at how closely he noticed. "I guess I like the angle." He smiled. "Most people just like being near the exit." I shrugged. That too. His name was Ben Mercer. 36, married to a woman named Teresa. One daughter, 6 years old, who sometimes ran down the aisles after service with glitter-streaked crafts. Ben wasn't flashy. He wore comfortable button-downs, jeans, always clean-shaven but never styled. The kind of man you'd overlook unless you needed help lifting something heavy. Or needed someone to listen without interrupting. We ended up talking by the coffee table for nearly an hour that day. About everything. Books, the city, why church people are weirdly obsessed with casseroles. I told him about my job in healthcare administration. He told me he worked in logistics part-time and stayed home during the week so Teresa could finish nursing school. There was nothing flirtatious, but there was warmth, a softness. The kind of space I hadn't felt in a long time. After that, it became rhythm. I'd linger. He'd offer a seat. We'd talk. Sometimes just 10 minutes, sometimes longer. We never texted. We never made plans. But I started waking up Sunday mornings looking forward to the one conversation in my week where I didn't have to edit myself. Ben never rushed me. Never said, look on the bright side. Never tried to fix anything. He just listened. And the more he did, the more I found myself saying things I hadn't told anyone, not even Travis. Things like, sometimes I wish I could just disappear for a week. Not run away, just pause. Or, I think I'm more afraid of being the bad guy than I am of being unhappy. He never judged. He just nodded. Asked thoughtful questions. Held silence like it was sacred. One morning after service, it started raining unexpectedly. I hadn't brought an umbrella. My car was blocks away. Ben saw me standing under the awning, arms crossed, shivering slightly. Let me give you a ride, he said. I hesitated. It's fine, he added quickly. Teresa's with her sister today. I'm just heading home. I said yes. I wish I could say I didn't think twice, but I did. And I still got in. The car was quiet, old jazz playing low. His daughter's drawing hung from the rearview mirror, a crooked sun and two stick figures holding hands. I stared at the window, watched the rain blur the world outside. Ben didn't say anything until we were a few blocks from my place. You know, he said, just because someone leans on you doesn't mean you're not allowed to rest too. I blinked hard. No one had said that to me. Not once. Not friends, not family, not Travis. Just Ben. We pulled up to my building. He didn't shut off the engine. I turned to him. Thanks for the ride. He nodded. Ben, without moving closer, without shifting his body, he said, You're allowed to need things too, Madeline. And my throat caught. Because that was the first time in months someone used my name like it meant something. I got out quickly. Didn't look back. But that night, I laid in bed thinking not about the conversation, but about how safe I had felt in his silence. And I started to wonder, how much of a betrayal is it, really, when the only thing you're guilty of is needing someone who finally makes space for your pain? It started with one message, a thank you text after the rainy ride. Thanks again, Ben. You didn't have to. He replied a few hours later. Didn't have to, wanted to. You look like you needed a break from pretending you're okay. I stared at the screen for too long, then replied, I don't think I even remember what okay feels like. That opened the door. And once it opened, it didn't close. We didn't message constantly, but enough. Enough for it to become something. It was always about ideas, emotions, exhaustion, meaning. Never sex. Never bodies. Just souls bumping into each other late at night. Sometimes we talk about books. He loved Steinbeck, I preferred Didion. Sometimes about God, not the church version, but the quiet one we hoped might still be listening. Mostly, we talked about the ache of staying where you're needed, but not seen. One night, I messaged him around 11:17 p.m. Travis told me today that I'm the only thing keeping him from falling apart. He didn't reply right away. Then came, that's too much weight for one person to carry. I don't know how to put it down without breaking him. Then maybe it's already broken. You're just holding the pieces in place. I cried harder than I expected. Because deep down, I knew he was right. 2 weeks later, we ended up alone in the church storage room after the food drive. Everyone else had gone. I was organizing leftover canned goods, hands shaking from a long day. Ben walked in to grab folding chairs. I don't even remember what we said, but I do remember the quiet. I dropped a can, bent to pick it up, stood too fast, dizzy, suddenly lightheaded. He caught my elbow to steady me. It wasn't even dramatic, but his hand stayed longer than it needed to. And I didn't move. We stood like that, his hand on my arm, mine on his wrist, for maybe 10 seconds. 10 seconds where no one spoke, where no one touched lips or hips or skin. But everything shifted. The air became heavier. The silence, electric. The space between us, unsafe. He looked at me, not hungrily, not possessively, just deeply. Like he saw all the pieces of me I'd been hiding from everyone else and still thought I was worth standing that close to. Then he blinked. Stepped back. Said sorry. I nodded. We never mentioned it again. But that night, I dreamed about it. And not in the way I expected. In the dream, I wasn't kissing him. I was just sitting beside him, my head on his shoulder, his fingers barely brushing mine. And I woke up crying. After that, I started pulling away. Not because I was noble, but because I was terrified. Not of Ben, of myself. Of how badly I wanted something that didn't even feel like cheating, but still felt like it might undo me. I tried to pour more into Travis, tried to cook again, tried to kiss him like I used to, tried to listen without resentment in my bones. But every time he told me, "You're the only good thing I have," I wanted to scream, because I didn't want to be everything to someone who couldn't even see when I was empty. And in my silence, Ben faded. Fewer texts, shorter glances. He got the message. But the ache didn't leave. It just buried itself in the quiet. Until one day, everything exploded. And none of us would walk away the same. It happened on a Tuesday. I was at my desk replying to patient files halfway through cold coffee when my phone lit up. No words. Just a screenshot. The top said Ben Mercer. Below it, one of our messages. My message. I feel safest when I'm not with the person I'm supposed to love. And Ben's reply, that doesn't make you a bad person, it makes you honest. Attached was a single sentence. I'll let you keep the part of your conscience that still works. I didn't need to ask who sent it. The number was unknown. But the tone, that was Teresa's. My hands went numb. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I even blinked. Then the panic rose like fire, fast and high and choking. I texted Ben, she knows. 3 dots. Then nothing. 3 minutes passed. Then a single reply. She saw the notifications last night. I didn't deny anything. I just told her it wasn't physical. I didn't reply, because somehow that made it worse. That night I got home and found Travis sitting at the kitchen table. No music, no TV, no dim lights, just him, in silence. Like a man waiting for a letter he already knew would break his heart. I dropped my bag, opened my mouth. But he beat me to it. How long has it been going on? His voice wasn't angry. Just tired. I swallowed. It wasn't an affair, Travis. It wasn't physical. He cut in. He laughed once, just once. The kind of laugh that comes from the part of you that finally stops pretending it's not hurting. You don't have to cheat on someone's body to leave their heart behind. I sat down slowly. I didn't plan any of it. I was lonely. You were. I stopped, because how do you tell someone they were too heavy to carry without sounding like a monster? Travis looked down at his hands. Rough, calloused, familiar. I know I've been lost, Maddie. I know I haven't been easy to love lately. He paused. But I thought we were honest. That's when I broke. Not from guilt. I had already been drowning in that. But from the grief of realizing I had taken the one thing we still had, trust, and quietly, methodically, starved it. He didn't yell, didn't throw anything. He stood up, walked to the bedroom, grabbed the duffel bag he kept under the bed. I hadn't even noticed it was packed. He came back, holding his keys. I'm not angry, he said softly. I just be someone you resent for not being someone else. And with that, he walked out. Not a door slam, not a goodbye. Just the soft click of someone removing themselves from a story they no longer belonged in. That night I didn't sleep. Not from heartbreak, but from something worse. The echo of everything I didn't say when it still mattered. The next Sunday I went to church. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to see Ben. Maybe part of me wanted to be seen, and punished, and cast out. But he wasn't there. Neither was Teresa. The pews felt colder, the air heavier. People still nodded politely, smiled like nothing had happened, but no one asked if I wanted to join for coffee. No one invited me to stay late and fold chairs. It wasn't exile. It was silence. And somehow, that cut deeper. That afternoon I scrolled through Ben's profile. It had gone private. His last post, a quote, "Sometimes we think we want answers, when really, we just want permission to keep lying to ourselves." No tags, no likes, just that. I sat alone in the kitchen Travis used to cook in. The fridge still held his almond milk. The cabinet still had his cereal. But the space felt sterile, like he had never been real. Just a projection of something I didn't protect when I had the chance. That's when I realized. No one was coming to yell at me. No one was calling me names. No one was going to post about the other woman. I wasn't going to be humiliated. I was just going to be forgotten. And somehow, that was the worst punishment of all. The apartment didn't change. Travis left his winter coat on the back of the door, his charger still plugged in next to the bed. His favorite coffee mug, the one with the tiny chip on the rim, still sat in the sink. Everything remained exactly as it was. Except him. And without him, everything felt like evidence. Like I was living in a crime scene I couldn't admit I'd created. I tried to carry on. Went to work, paid bills, walked Murphy, our neighbor's dog I used to help watch. I even lit candles and cleaned the kitchen, pretending like if I just wiped the counters hard enough, I could scrub away the part of me that chose silence over honesty. But the silence stayed. Like wallpaper, like grief. I returned to church once, just once. Ben wasn't there. No one mentioned his name. Teresa served tea at the back table like always, perfectly polite. Her eyes met mine for half a second. She nodded, a millimeter movement of her chin. Not a glare, not a smile. Just recognition, that was all. I sat in the pew, knees trembling, and tried to pray. But all I could whisper was, I broke something. And I don't think anyone's gonna fix it. After that, I stopped going, stopped checking for messages, stopped expecting forgiveness. No one blocked me, no one confronted me, no one told me to stay away, but no one reached out either. It was like being soft banned from my own life. I bumped into Ben one day, grocery store. He was alone, wearing a gray hoodie, holding a bundle of spinach and almond milk. He didn't look surprised, didn't look angry, just tired. I smiled, a small broken thing. He nodded once and walked past me without a word. That 1 second, that single, civil, deliberate indifference, broke me more than if he'd shouted in the frozen foods aisle. Because in that moment I realized I had become someone not worth confronting. Just someone to move around. That night, I came home and sat on the floor of my bedroom. I opened the drawer on Travis's side. Inside, still neatly folded, was the note he left taped to the fridge. You can keep the apartment. I just want to keep my peace. Simple, final. There was no, I'll miss you. No, you destroyed me. Not even goodbye. Just a man choosing silence over spectacle. And somehow, that hurt the most. I started keeping a notebook, nothing fancy, no goals, no affirmations, just a sentence a day. Sometimes it was, I didn't check his profile today. Sometimes, I remembered the way Travis hummed when he cooked. And once, no one has looked at me like I'm worth saving in 47 days. I didn't write that one again. I tried dating. Once. A software engineer named Paul. Kind, witty, smelled like cedarwood. But when he reached for my hand during dessert, something in me flinched. Not because I was scared. Because I realized I was still trying to unlearn what it felt like to be looked at, and still unseen. Some nights I'd scroll through old photos. Me and Travis at a fall festival. Me and Ben setting up canned goods. A blurry picture of me in the back pew, smiling at something off camera. I studied that version of myself. Wondered what she was thinking. What she believed she deserved. What she was trying so hard to preserve, even while destroying it. I never told anyone what really happened. When people asked, I just said, it didn't work out. Which, in some ways, was true. It didn't. Because I didn't know how to ask for more, without asking for something that didn't belong to me. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a reckoning, maybe punishment. Maybe some kind of poetic justice to tell me where I stood on the scale between sinner and victim. But none of that came. What came was the quiet. And it didn't leave. I kept working. Kept living, kept replying to emails and heating up dinner and making small talk with coworkers who no longer asked about Travis. The world had moved on. Because it always does. And that was the strangest part. How nothing around me looked broken, even though everything inside me still felt like glass. One night about 3 months after Travis left, I found the strength to open a blank document. Not for work. Not for a to-do list. Not even for closure. Just a letter I'd never send. To anyone, not to Travis, not to Ben, not even to God, just to me. Madeline, you weren't a bad person. But you were a weak one. You wanted to be loved without being leaned on. You wanted warmth without the weight. You wanted to be someone's home without ever offering your own. And when that felt impossible, you found a window and called it a door. Ben didn't steal your loyalty. You gave it away, not in lust, not in scandal, but in small, quiet pieces. A glance. A message. A moment of silence too long to be innocent. And you told yourself, at least I'm not cheating. As if betrayal has to be loud to count. Travis loved you in the only way he knew how. Broken and clinging. And maybe that wasn't enough. Maybe you were right to feel suffocated. But you weren't right to stay and rot in the room instead of opening the door and walking out with honesty. You didn't leave when it would have hurt less. You stayed. And wilted. And in your silence, you made him feel like the crime was his own existence. As for Ben, you'll carry that for a while, not because of what happened, but because of what almost did. Because you knew. You knew the moment his hand touched yours, the way your body stilled, the way your eyes didn't look away. You knew, and you stayed still anyway. But here's the part no one will say. You are still redeemable. Not by him, not by Travis, not by anyone else, but by you. If, and only if, you stop rewriting the story to make yourself the casualty. You weren't a victim of loneliness. You were a coward in the face of clarity. And now, you know. And that's the beginning. I saved the document, didn't title it, didn't print it, just saved it. Like someone leaving the light on for a version of themselves who might come back stronger one day. It's been 6 months now. Travis has a new apartment. I know because a mutual friend posted photos of their housewarming. He looked calm. He looked thinner. He looked okay. Ben and Teresa are still together. They left the church. Moved across town. I sometimes wonder if he still reads Steinbeck. If he still drinks that weird chamomile blend he kept in his glove box. If he ever thinks about the way I said goodbye by saying nothing. Me? I still live in the same apartment, but it's quieter now. Cleaner. Less like a crime scene, more like a confession booth. I rearranged the furniture, got rid of the couch Travis loved, bought a second-hand table, crooked leg and all, because I figured imperfection is something I need to sit with. Some mornings I wake up and still check for messages that won't come, still wonder what version of me Travis remembers, still wish I could rewrite that one rainy night. But most days I just make my coffee, light a candle, and write one line in my notebook. I'm still learning how to tell the truth before it's too late. And that's enough. Not forgiveness. Not redemption. But a beginning.